So I'm excited to bring to the stage Matteo, who we are going to hear a lot from. All right, how are we feeling tonight?
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay,
Pretty
great.
Good, thank you.
Great. I want to start out. Well, we can start with like a high-level overview of the Anima project. There's a lot that goes into it. It's multimedia, it's visual, it's audio, it's a lot of different experiences. So, how would you sort of describe the Anima project and what your intention was when you first went into it?
So, the Anima project, I think, lies at the intersection between like art, music, and technology, like at its core. And it's really like the reason why I started it was to kind of bring myself and whoever wanted to join kind of into like a multidimensional journey in a way. And yeah, the reason was like to push a bit boundaries of live experiences and in general how art is perceived in this era, in this time, a time where digital and physical are blending always more, and basically, yeah, like blurring the lines between what's possible and what an artist and a creative can communicate to the world, and sort of like letting it sit and see where it goes.
Right. So I want to start out by talking about the End of Genesis. It's the third of your albums. It just came out in May. It sort of closes the loop on the Genesis project for you. When you went into the Genesis project, did you sort of scope it out from the beginning, imagining how it was going to sound and how it was going to evolve musically? And if so, how do you think that the album sort of accomplishes that?
Well, to answer that question, would have to analyze the whole trilogy, of the three albums and how we get to the end of Genesis and how the sound has evolved with the project. I think, yeah, I've never really talked about how this thing came about, so I would like to take it a bit, from the beginning. When I started the project and I started to understand the output of what it would be, I didn't think in albums, I didn't think in singles, I didn't think about how it would be distributed or released, It was really just about finding that balance between the audio and visuals in a way. So it was between scoring and like the other way around, making visuals to music. So the first song came about and it was like consciousness, in fact. And yeah, the song inspired some sort of like visual identity in my head directly. And I knew I wanted to touch these thematics of, like consciousness and the digital self and like what's going on, with the world. And then the first song came about, and that was a single, And I think this is important to understand because each part of the output of the project has been sort of like quite instinctive, like I'm feeling this record, I'm feeling this visual, I want to show the world. And from producing it to showing the world, it took not so long sometimes, And I didn't really want to wait to drop a whole album together because I thought it was more in episodes. So started releasing like singles, and then we had the show, and then it's kind of became a collection, and it became Genesis after a while in my head, after it was initially the live show, the Genesis concept. So the first album came about, and this was the one with all the songs with the first visuals, like the siren and consciousness and all of these. And basically the sort of need to explore more the medium made me do their other two the second album specifically, just kind of like I felt like I didn't do everything I could with the first concept, and that's why I was like, let's do another album now and just kind of like keep touring it. But it wasn't like start and stop. It wasn't like drop the album and start the tour. It was like in steps, like without following any rules or guidelines. At the time, I wasn't even signed to any label, so I was really doing a bit what I was feeling, And then, in fact, the End of Genesis, the reason why it's called the End of Genesis, because I thought the creative output I could do within this lore and these thematics sort of came to honest end for me where I was like, okay, this is all I wanted to say, and the sphere was like the perfect like closure for it, you know, because both visually and sonically it was like the perfect place to end the story. And yeah, this is the story of the three albums and how the albums came about, but it wasn't like some sort of premeditated operation. Like, it was very organic.
Right, and collaboration is a really important part of your process. Obviously, you have, especially on the End of Genesis, you have Grimes, you have FK Twigs, you have Ellie Goulding, you have Sev Deliza. There's a lot of people. Some of them showed up, I think all of them in some capacity showed up at the Sphere shows. So what is your process of collaboration, deciding who you work with, how you work with them, and how you exchange ideas?
So, in regard to the collaborations, I really just wanted to work with the artists that inspired me in the first place, from different, you know, genres, and like not necessarily just electronic or dance focused artists. And that's why some of the collaborations were a bit out of the box sometimes, you know, but to me they were all very meaningful. You know, I wanted to work with kind of my favorite artists at the time, and I think I successfully, like, you know, like interacted with most of them, and I'm very happy about this, because when I started I would never thought, you know, I could work with artists like these with such a strong identity. And yeah, this is the key, the core of it is that all these artists have universes. They built universes around them, you know, like I was trying to do, and they have a strong visual and sonic identity. You can really tell, like, from anything that their output creates, it's from these artists, you know. So it was just very organic to kind of amplify visually and sonically their universe and kind of make it clash with mine. And I think each of these collaborations had its own like story. Like, it's pretty meaningful, you know, all of these collaborations for me.
Right, and musically, you know, you put out 3 records over the course of several years. How have you grown musically, and how do you think that's sort of reflected in the evolution of the music that you put out?
Okay.
Sorry, that was a hard question.
No, it's good. It's good to address some of these points. With the beginning of the Anima and Genesis project was also like sort of like the beginning of melodic techno, which is the genre that I kind of carried through the whole project. And it was already there, you know, like, but let's say it was more like much of a subculture. Like, we started in Berlin, and like it was kind of more like deep and ambient and atmospheric, and you know, I did all of that stuff, which I'm, you know, looking back sometimes I'm very proud of, like beautiful records. And let's say that just organically it started, you know, evolving with sort of the needs an artist has when it grows and it looks the future. And I think the music has evolved a lot through the 3 records. Like, the first record was just crazy for me because these sounds were all new, and we were just finding them out. Like, for example, the sound of a siren song. I mean, I'm sure you guys know it by now. Well, which I did with Rebuke. And like, honestly, this sound I had never heard before in my life, you know, and neither had he. And I remember hitting him up and saying, I like one of his records on Odd Creations that was just kind of like interesting, syncopated stuff. And I was like, we should work on something like following, you know, what this new sound I'm trying to create. And it was pretty interesting because it was chaotic. In fact, me and him, we call it like, let's unleash some chaos, you know? Like, you know, you can imagine like just like these triplets and these detuned sounds, and we were like, how can we like mess up the synth as much as possible, basically? That was the whole idea behind it. Like, it's as simple as that. But then, obviously, that was a bit of experimenting, a bit of workflow, a bit of work. But then, you know, we made all those records. There's 10 songs sound like Siren. I swear, like there's at least 10. They're all the same. and we obviously just picked one, you know. But I just honestly, we picked it like random because we didn't know. Like, that's the level of how much we didn't know what was gonna work. I tried a few, and I remember I had this club show in Zurich, and you know how everybody screams when that synth comes in, no? And they think it's because of the visual. I mean, maybe it is also, but like, I mean, there is that specific moment, and I knew that was the one because I played it out, and it was just a little club, Nordstern, in Basel, and there was no screens, nothing. And I remember playing that song, not knowing what would happen. You know, maybe it would have been like very weird. Like it was a weird song, to be honest. And as soon as the synth came in, and it was very, very, it wasn't even mastered, nothing. But I had this gut feeling, I want to try this record. You know, some of you are DJs, maybe they know what I'm talking about. And I put it on, and sort of like when the synth came in, you know, everybody went nuts. Like the same as there was 200 people in there, but they went nuts. The same as the 50,000 in Mexico City, same reaction. Not even the visual thought about yet, nothing. So, yes, that song works also without visuals. It worked first without visuals, and I knew I was onto something. I knew I was onto something because I got super excited about the song after I played it live. And I hit up Rebuke, I'm like, bro, this is sick. And he was like, are you sure? I remember. I'm like, yeah, I think it works. Let me think of something so that people will pay attention to it, you know? And that was it, you know? And that was really the beginning of that sound. Of course, there was also the collaboration with Chris, Consciousness and Eternity. And all these sounds were new, you know? Like, of course, we had their influences, you know, progressive and electronic and techno. Also, Chris Avantgarde came from like more like cinema and like scoring. So he had that kind of expertise, and I really needed someone with eyes on like more the depth and the chords and the emotions. But like that album was very exciting to make, but was not thought through. Like we didn't know what we were doing until it came out, and you know it was a thing. So that was Genesis 1. Genesis 2 evolved in a way because the genre one was evolving too, and other artists came on board and started like, you know, interpreting these sounds, and honestly making them sometimes even better and more interesting, you know. So that's for me always been inspiring, that people kind of like pushed forward what the instinct I had initially, you know. That I think one of my biggest strengths is like to figure out how to get excited, like even a community, and to build a community of artists that grows with you, and you know you can help them, they can give back. And the Genesis 2 was really about collaborating with these more like up-and-coming producers, and like giving space, and like also trying to understand what they were thinking, you know. And so this was like a mix between a remix album, like the Massano remix of Eternity, which was also like a big part of the show, of the second leg of the tour, like in South American stuff. And yeah, this was a collection of records from the community and me, and like a in-between moment of the phase, you know. So like premature to be like the actual thing, but a bit more evolved than Genesis 1. Is like my least favorite, to be honest. But the songs in there, like there is one is very important to me, like the Pictures of You, and that's like autobiographical song, and it was actually the first song I kind of like even wrote the song and like work on the lyrics and stuff. So I started getting into really like the songwriting a little bit in that album, and for me it was a new world because I was making like 10 years of like bleepy modular sounds, you know, in Berlin. So it was just like the beginning of like understanding how music is made on a songwriting level. So it was, you know, it was like an experiment for me, but it was less experimental than the first album, you know? And for the End of Genesis, of course, I was more ready to collaborate with artists that are like, you know, pop stars like Ellie Goulding, or like innovators like Grimes and FK Twigs. And in general, like, it's a more mature album, and the sound is more on focus. Everything sounds better. It's, let's say, I think the best one out of the three as a listening experience. You know, like it's very thought through. It's a score to the Sphere shows. So I put a lot of thought and time. Like this took forever. This album, less like a compilation of songs and sounds that get me excited, and more of an artistic statement.
Right. Before we talk about the Sphere shows, because I feel like obviously you've been scaling up over the years until you really hit that moment. Is there a particular song on the End of Genesis that really stands out to you as a song that you really connect to and would want to give a little bit of background on how it came together?
Yeah, sure. I think the Human Now song is the most important song on the album. I wrote it with Magnus in Ibiza one afternoon, like after a day at the beach, and like I was explaining, he's a songwriter from the UK, like very talented, also an artist. And basically, it was just me and him, like no camp, no sessions, like just like very, very like down to the stripped down, just me and him basically in my house, like not in the studio. And I remember I had in the mind the end of the Sphere show, because at this time we were really like producing this whole thing, and it was like a movie studio in the other side of the house. So the music was one side and all the visual stuff was the other, and it was kind of juggling between these settings. And me and Alessio De Vecchi, my main collaborator with the visual stuff, we came up with this idea of, like kind of like turning Eva human through the quantum computer, and like, maybe we talk about this later. Anyway,
We'll get to Eva. We'll get there.
And yeah, I remember like there were some synths going in the back, and Manuel was kind of jamming on them, and like I heard like these chords, and then I'm like, he was singing something else. Like I remember, like Not Human Now, and at the same, and I was looking at this mock-up of Eva becoming human, and I was like here in my head, like human now. I heard it, and he wasn't singing it. And I go there, sick, human now. I don't know what I'm saying. Like, that's what you're saying now. So basically, the whole lyrics we wrote to the scene. Okay, we wrote it to the end scene. Like we scored exactly what would happen on screen from the mock-up animation, and I think that was my first time scoring a movie, basically. And a personal movie I kind of directed and produced and wrote the song. So. It's a bit of a sad song, and it's a bit like more on the down, like it's a bit downer. So I don't think it's one of the most successful, unfortunately. But yeah, for me, it's the most meaningful.
Right. You're talking about how you sort of wrote some of the music with the visual in mind, sphere in mind. The Sphere was obviously a huge moment for you. I played a bunch of dates, if you don't know, in December and January. And it was a marriage of cinema and sound and all of these different visual stimuli. Tell us a little bit about conceptualizing and executing this. This was obviously a huge undertaking. You worked on it for a really long time. So overview of sort of how you wrangled a team together and executed on this vision.
So, the Sphere show. Yeah, how we did that, you're asking, right? All right. So, first of all, I arrived already kind of like with an internal setup of like very good 3D artists and concept artists that are like the core team of Anima, this is my team. Some of them are with me since more than 10 years also, like then of course Alessio came on board later. But we are already 4 or 5 guys and have, another network of like maybe 10 people that are like more they work when we need them, like, and they're all over the world. And we had like sort of like a production expertise in these audiovisual live things, like it was already a few years we were kind of producing them. So we didn't start from scratch. We had a little independent studio, let's say. And then, of course, we soon realized the challenges of the Sphere, the resolution, and the size of the files, and what it would mean to actually render these visuals. And we had to scale up drastically, like very fast, because we confirmed the shows, and we're like sick. This is happening. And then when we looked at the technical aspects, I mean, somebody looked before, but then we realized after. Well, we were like, okay, this is going to be very challenging, you know, if we have to like kind of follow these guidelines, which were the tech of the building, which is insane, actually, you know, like I don't think there's anything like that with that resolution. Like we're talking terabytes of data for a minute, you know, and yeah, we had to become a film studio, you know. So we hired a few studios, mainly woodblock studios, and I don't know, we became like 90 to 100 people, and for me it was like a new job, basically, you know. I had a basic understanding of the of Cinema 4D and like, you know, like the rendering process and how 3D art works. Alessio, of course, was has a big expertise, but we had to be very careful with the feedbacks, what we say, you know, what happens, and the budget was pretty tight. Also, you know, everybody worked to make an effort. We didn't even know actually how many shows we would put on in the beginning, you know, because until we announced and we saw the resonance, could have been 2 or 3, you know, and basically the more shows we would put on, the more budget and manpower to animate, model we had. So it was pretty risky in the beginning, to be honest. But and I wanted the pace to be fast. Like I didn't want visual to stay for 20 minutes and just songs on it, you know. So I wanted the pace to be fast. So we did over 38 visuals. It was like over 1 hour of content. And yeah, I mean, every visual was a whole drama, basically, you know, like like what you can do, what you can't do, like literally, like we have the problem with the grass and the leaves, and we had to hire someone in Asia that was the only one who could do these leaves, you know, like that's the level of micromanagement we had to look into, because it affects the creativity. It affects the output, and sometimes you have to cut some lines and say, okay, doesn't matter if the waves are crashing against the tree or not, you know, which is, to me is upsetting, because with music I can do whatever I want, you know.
No waves though.
But we had to really like just make the most out of it, you know, and I think like 50% of the show was at very high level of CG and motion graphics. You know, the rest was on a budget, to be honest. But it's already an accomplishment to have done this, to be honest, on that scale for us. You know, and in the end, I think everybody felt it was something like different, you know, from just a movie or something. So that's also what I wanted to achieve. You know, the intention of these characters and what they represent. Yeah. Basically, I can go on forever.
Yeah. I mean, I think a huge aspect of your live show, and particularly what you were doing at the Sphere, was you were telling a story. You sort of left it open to interpretation for people who came to experience it, or anybody who caught it on social media. It was like all over my For You feed. And it's split up into 4 acts. So tell me a little bit about the storytelling aspect of the show and what you were trying to accomplish with this Eva character who you created in 2021. It sort of began as an NFT. How did this sort of speak to the Genesis project and how you were sort of closing the loop on that?
So where Eva starts, basically, and how it got to the Sphere, kind of.
Yeah, and sort of like how the story sort of comes to an end
what
at that
about,
point. Yeah.
Okay. So the Sphere shows the End of Genesis was divided in 4 acts. Like I called it like a kind of like a cybernetic opera, and the reason being was that it was kind of like a play in my head, you know, with music and these live strings. In fact, well, robot strings, but but yeah, basically the main story is the Genesis Part 1 and Part 2. You know, the End of Genesis, the first and the third act. That's like the story of you know, Adam and Eve. Like they are these fictional characters it's based in a very, very far away future, you know, where this was a bit a dystopic setting. In Genesis, like everything that could have went wrong with the human race went wrong, you know, and the world would have been like a nuclear wasteland, but you know, radiation, everything, but everything regrew, but without humans, you know, and that was like on the ground. But then the humans were kind of orbiting in these space stations, you know, never made it to Mars. So they're just like orbiting around Earth, and they're trying to figure out how to go back, basically, you know. And Eva, in fact, is a sentinel bot in the lore of the story, and she's kind of like she was built to go and, you know, research the habitat, you know, and that's why she's jumping from the spaceship in the first scene, you know. The reason why Eva is sentient is not like that the humans specifically wanted to, you know. She was supposed to be made in a series, like thousands of these bots. It's one of the scenes we couldn't do at the Sphere, by the way. Like, so now you know why she's there. And one of them basically, like, kind of like, you know, it can happen, becomes an AGI, you know, like they download the system into it, and this bot kind of like awakens, you know, and says, okay, I understand why I was built, you know, but I want to decide by myself if I want to help the human race or not. So that was her point of view. And that's why she's kind of like behind this glass. She's not really trapped in a way. That's more like a metaphor of like kind of the AI wanted to break out and like, let's say, it's not so important to her intentions, that scene, you know. It was more of a statement like that I wanted to make separate from the story. The story is like that she's basically, there is this piece that I stopped using called Angel One, where she would basically put her head on herself and spread these wings, which then were her cables and stuff. And this was basically signifying the awakening of this robot. She had half her bust. She wasn't even finished. So she's kind of building herself and saying, okay, I understand, but let me do it, you know. I'm not going to take like sort of orders, but she's not a hostile bot, you know. She's kind of like understanding the purpose and wants to help. So in this scene where she falls, like this fall from the spaceship towards the Earth, she kind of looking at the camera, like with an intention, like these should be drones, because she kind of escaped, obviously. You know, she broke this glass, she escaped. But then she's going to do what she was meant to do anyways, but on her own free will. So that's why she has this feeling of like, okay, I'm gonna go, but like, you know, don't chase me right now, you know? So she just goes down, she falls, and that's the beginning of the whole journey, actually, you know? And we follow her through this fall into the unknown, you know, and she's never been to Earth. She has a sense of belonging to it, though, you know, and she knows there's something there, like a motherland in a way, you know, like a place to go back to, a home. It doesn't feel like it's the spaceship, you know? And yeah, in fact, then it starts with the part where Adam awakens, and this is the second character, kind of like introduction. And Adam is basically a human that has been kind of preserved by nature. So the nature preserved in this lore the human DNA, a bit like we preserve the dinosaur in the resin, you know, like, so they are there, but they cannot really walk around. It's the nature keeps them in check, because it's like you're part of us now. That's why he's tied in all these roots and stuff, you know, and that's why he's under this kind of this cave with all this bioluminescent stuff. But he is very much part of the environment, and like can communicate with nature and everything. So, long story short, basically, he creates this beam of light, you know, through this, like, everything has the reason. One day I will explain it all, but maybe not today. This beam of light, and like Eva sees this beacon and like kind of like falls towards it. And the end of the first act, in fact, is with the song "Save Me," you know. And this is like, initially this visual was supposed to be a song called "The Pact," where it's the one where the two hands of Eva and Adam kind of like touch each other. and that was the pact was meaning like a pact between humanity, technology, and nature, where a symbiosis is created, where technology imitates nature and vice versa, to the point where they speak the same language through like electrical impulses and binary code, you know. And basically, this mother tree, this tree, which is also part of the first act, like this sacred ancient tree that holds Adam, and when Eva arrives and they touch, they have a connection, and it's like this ball of energy that kind of gets unleashed. That's supposed to be the first impact of communication between these entities, and basically they are then in an agreement that, you know, okay, humans can sort of like start walking around and gather in societies again, but, you know, the AI is there also to create a balance now. So there is free entities on the earth, and I see that as a message of how we could move forward also in this modern era, you know? So that's more or less the first act.
Okay. You know, obviously, it's it's a high concept. We just heard you really dig into it, and it really started as a small kernel of an idea. Take us back to the beginning. I know as I mentioned, Eva began as an NFT in 2021. Did you have the vision then for what this was eventually going to become, or did it sort of build over time?
No, I didn't have the whole vision at once. It's the whole story was created over time, a chapter at a time, you know, and it was just a head, honestly. It was just the head of a robot in the beginning, and didn't have a soul yet, you know. And as soon as we injected the music in it, like the first song that I got paired with was the Kate Bush cover, and Running, yeah. And basically, yeah, as soon as those chords started going through that, yeah, this we are seeing, through this piece, this was an art piece me and Alessio did, it was just like digital art. It was supposed to have a bit of music. Anima wasn't even supposed to tour at this point. We were just creating digital art and with audio together, you know. And basically, as soon as the chords ran through this visual, and like, I directly felt like a very heavy vibe, a strong vibe, you know, like something came alive, you know, and that's how I felt like, maybe there's something here, you know, like what's this about? Like, why am I resonating so strong with this head, you know? And I could see the expressivity of it through the music, and that's when I realized the audio and video like was such a strong medium. Of course, in movies you have it and stuff, but it's different because this was super focused. Like the balance was like 50-50, you know, and yeah, that was the beginning really of it.
So then you sort of developed the idea into having it sort of ready for your first show, and this was at London, well, or like I guess your big first huge moment for you as Anima, or with the Anima project, and that was at London's Printworks. That was in 2022, right?
Yeah, that was a year later, the head.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, before that, I did few more audio visual pieces in Tulum, and then kind of left it there, like to see where it would sit. The project was interesting, you know, like it was still not really meant to be anything more than maybe something like my more personal interest on the side of the, you know, the Telovas and Afterlife projects. And then basically, like when COVID happened, you know, and like it was like a long time basically before this. Well, COVID was before this, but I was preparing it all already. And after this first year basically of touring these snippets of this concept, you know, I decided maybe it was ready to be a whole journey, you know. And so it took a year from the first head at Printworks to the actual eternity, the robot knocking, you know. And that was the breakthrough, in my opinion. You know, it was like that was a crazy day for sure.
Yeah. Obviously, you talk about AI, and AI is a very big topic in the music industry. How it interacts with, you know, music made by humans and all this stuff, and also it is sort of a theme of what you do as well. What are your sort of thoughts on artificial intelligence? How does that speak to what you do and the music you make and the sort of visual presentation that accompanies it?
I'm pro AI, first of all. I think it's great. I just think like with everything that has so much potential and power, you have to be careful, you know. Especially let's stay within the boundaries of creativity for the sake of the conversation though. And basically, you know, when first time the computers came and like I remember I had like Logic 4 or something, and like my friends in Berlin were like on tapes and modulars, and I was using a computer, and we're like, you're gonna be eaten by it. Your soul is gone. Like, and I mean, the first Logics were like not very easy to use. They had the environment, you had to plug in the cables. Like it was the same as having a studio just with a mouse. So it wasn't super sellout, you know. And now we are at the same intersection, honestly. Like AI is going to be a very useful tool for producers and for creators, like minds that didn't have the opportunity before to have a studio, or even like, you know, the ideas can just flow faster in and out of it. It's going to create more chaos, and it's going to create maybe more bad art. That's potentially true. But on the other hand, it's a very great tool for me right now. I cannot deny it, you know, like both in the music side, in the visual side, in the writing, like of the lore side, like I use it a lot. I don't use it for personal things, you know, like it's not my friend yet, but there's some kids do, you know, and that's okay, you know, that's okay. Like I was talking to this 10-year-old kid like 2 weeks ago, and like, honestly, they're super smart now because of this. You know, like me, to answer a question, I don't know. When I'm so young, I was on internet for 2 hours. This guy went on chat in 30 seconds, was smarter than me. Like, knew everything. So if anything, it's going to take down screen time, because the discoverability of the information is much faster, you know? And also it's more precise, you know? Like even, again, I spent 5 years on YouTube learning how to produce, you know? Like if I had AI and like a bit more tutoring, because it's tutoring actually, you know, you're asking questions specific to your needs. You don't need to like go all over the internet to just understand what's up. I think it really helps artists to grow. New artists that we can't even, we don't know. Some kid in some basement gonna make some crazy beat with AI, and that's gonna be it for everyone else. You know?
Right. You obviously think very intellectually about your creativity and what you put out in the world and how you construct it. And I spoke with Matteo in December for a story that I wrote about the Sphere Residency, and you were sort of talking about the idea of quantum mechanics and quantum theory being really relevant to, or at least like intriguing to you for what you were exploring. So as you're sort of sunsetting the Genesis project and embarking on a new venture, what's sort of on your minds, not just theoretically, but musically, and do you already sort of have an idea of what direction that's going to go in?
Okay, so the quantum concept, which is, you know, was the end of the sphere show. Like the sphere show kind of ends with the End of Genesis, and there is this, you know, this piece with Hear Me Now where like Adam dies, and you know, like kind of Eva kind of like outsources his consciousness, downloads it, and that's why her left eye becomes the color of him. So it kind of stores his soul, and basically she is left alone again, you know, and that was kind of the, you know, the end of the first loop, you know, this first loop for the story. And the quantum element came in because basically first of all, I love how the computer looks, just to be clear. Like, and that's why he was on stage and everything, and you know, and it was like the core of the journey, you know. And I basically think that quantum computing and ASI are gonna reshape the way we perceive the world, you know. And basically, the sooner science and spirit or religion stop clashing, but start intertwining and collaborating to understand what's next, I think the sooner we will make the biggest real advantages as a human race, you know? So that's what I was trying to say there. And and basically, this is exactly why there is this quantum computer and this robot, and also myself as a traveler, you know. But it's really this journey is within. It's not anymore in the world or in the universe. This journey was more within. By within, I mean uploaded intelligence in the cloud through, you know, powered with quantum computing and all that stuff, which we're not going to get into. But, but anyways, the quantum part is for me the most imaginative, because of course in these realities, like anything is possible, you know, and like me myself as an artist can really let my creativity like flow without the bounds of what's possible within, you know, the real world, you know, and that's definitely where I'm going next, you know. It's going to be a bit more like a dream-like world, surreal, and sort of like yeah, it's going to blur even more the lines. It's less figurative in a way.
And what about musically? Because obviously you're thinking a lot about theory and execution, but you obviously are also very open to learning about music and how that's put together in new ways. So what's been interesting you, and where do you sort of see yourself heading musically?
So musically, I have really like reached my goals with the melodic techno sound, and I think I really pushed this to the best it can be, or the best I can make it, to be honest. Like probably someone can push it forward. So I'm gonna keep my roots in there, but I really gonna start looking a bit broader, and also going back to my roots before this sound, you know, because I went through different sounds, you know. Before it was more like deep house in the beginning, with like Cruston Rebels and Vision Quest and Life and Death. In fact, I was, you know, like an A&R of this label for many years with Manfredi, DJ Tennis, and I have so many influences. Before that, I was like obsessed with Warp Records and Played and Otacre and Aphex Twin. So I think electronic music has such a broad spectrum, and I've created my niche in it, and I have my sound, but at the moment I really feel I want to take some risks, you know, and I want to excite myself, and like by exciting myself, I hope to excite also everybody else, you know. So it's really about taking some risks and just like doing the best I can do within the realms of melody and electronic synthesis, which is what really gets me going, you know. So I can't really answer a question yet, because I'm
even though that was a pretty substantial answer.
Because I'm in experimentation phase.
I think obviously everyone's excited last night, as I mentioned before you came out, that you were announced as a headliner for Coachella in 2026, which is wonderful. Congrats.
Thank you.
And right at the bottom of that flyer, it says, I think, like presenting Eden or introducing Eden. And obviously, this is all fresh news. So is there anything that you can sort of tease out or let us in on about what you may have planned for this particular performance?
Basically, it's not completely planned yet, but, you know, it's more already everything in my head, which is, it's a good thing, you know? Like, it hasn't been, nothing been done, but, like, I see it now. I see the vision. I see where it's going. I see where it needs to be. And I can explain a bit what you saw on the post, you know, like why there is this temple with all these cables and like just kind of me going towards it mysteriously. Basically, I am now kind of like trying to sort of like doing a journey through the history of art, you know, and this was a neoclassical, for example, inspiration, but I've been focusing a lot on characters and figurative stuff, and I now want to take a broader view of everything and bring myself on this kind of journey and sort of like upload, you know, like the history of art to the cloud, and then this is going to be the universe where this takes place. So that's all you get.
Okay, so just a little. It's a huge idea. Yeah, I think we had a few audience questions that were up. There she is. Okay. First question is: you are known for your concert visuals. Will the Giza Egypt show have notable visuals?
Huh. Good question. Yeah, basically, of course, I was like wanted to do this pyramid show since years, but I couldn't really understand how to do it because I don't want to cover the pyramids with a screen. Obviously, that'd be insane. But but I did really want to bring. Now it's called Quantum Genesis there because like it's very late, so I had to just bring everything, you know. But basically, the idea is that there's going to be two stages. So I build like this kind of concept where there's two stages, and there's the quantum stage and there's the Genesis stage, and I'm going to be performing on both. So one set first, like no visuals, pyramid and installation, like following the kind of like the quantum concept installation with the cables and stuff. On the other side, there's a big ass screen. So, so I guess no one gonna be upset or complain. I mean, probably they will, but but I guess like that's really how I wanted to do it, you know. And I mean, to be fair, I had to pay for it, you know, to do it this way. So I really wanted to have the experience both ways, you know, like have the pyramid and experience that with me and the music and the new sounds from Quantum, and also like go back kind of in a journey, maybe for the last time of Genesis, actually, probably.
Another question. You recently were the visual creative director for the Weekend Sao Paulo events. Who would you like to work with next in this role? Is there any upcoming projects?
Well, first of all, I loved to work for Abel on that project, and I really got asked by many artists to work on their visuals before, and I kind of like was so focused on my thing, and I honestly it doesn't really just work if you just do visuals for songs, like you know, like I then you can hire a studio for that stuff, you know. But of course, with Abel was different because I'm a fan since many years, and I understand that he has like this such strong aesthetics also in the music, you know. You can hear the songs and just feel an aesthetic, you know. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that project really accomplished me to feel like, okay, this is the purpose, you know, like to amplify his vision and, you know, his cinematography through his songs. So I really enjoyed that. If I want to do more or not, I'm still thinking about it because it takes away a lot of time and resources, honestly. My whole team worked on that for like 3 months while we were supposed to also be working on the Sphere stuff. So it's challenging. I'd love, yeah, I mean, I'd love to work with Travis on that stuff. He was recently with me in Ibiza and we had a good chat. But yeah, nothing really like completely confirmed. And if it happens, it will be once every year or two. Like it's not going to be an ongoing thing for me, basically.
All right. You have spoken about creating personal healing environments through your shows. Do you find healing through them as well?
Well, in a way, I think I find healing through creating in general. Like that's the only way that really puts me at ease. Like when I create, like I have this urge. There's no reason aside from just making it initially. And the show is the last step, is the release of the whole process. So of course I feel better once it's done, and it's like it worked and nothing broke, and like it's so many elements, guys, that could go wrong in this kind of shows, and like the places where we do them, like you know, it's not in Netflix or going to IMAX, like so many things can go wrong in the shows, and like they did, you know. And honestly, like I feel great when the vision, you know, from the initial idea to the experience of it is released, you know. It's for me like it gives me a high for sure, you know. And at the same time, I will say I play two different kind of shows, you know. Like one is obviously the audiovisual show, and the other is like recently done a lot of sets this summer, just music, you know, like Tomorrowland or Brussels, the Atomium, and that's a different kind of like healing in a way, you know. So it's more immediate, like you as a DJ, like the energy of the people and like when everything is in one flow, one stream of consciousness, is almost meditational for me. So, I don't remember the question.
Should I
But
read? Do you want
no, like
okay.
if it's healing, like the audiovisual pieces. Like
Yeah,
indeed,
find healing through them as well.
as any other creative output that gets well received by me in premise, like that I feel good experiencing it, and also by an audience is very healing, of course. Yes.
All right, and last question is from Alejandro C. When is the Rufus Du Sol collab dropping? Which I think a lot of people in here are probably wondering.
Okay.
Okay, so it's not just one.
Yeah, no, I think everybody wants to know. Yeah. So we're not ending on a high note here. No, the truth is, like, I think all of us, meaning me, the Rufus boys, which are my really good friends, and we have a really great relationships and admiration between each other, and the audience is also like, the pressure now you guys put is so much on this song. We don't know what to do with it anymore. No, I'm joking. With artists such as me and Rufus, we're on a mission. We have our plans. They have their plan. Both plans are like really being executed on a high level, and we feel good about it. And I think it's gonna intersect at one point where this record feels right and sits right. The good thing about the record is that it's been now 3 years, and it still feels very exciting and like fresh, and like it's not like becoming old, because this would mean maybe it doesn't come out if it feels that way. But I recently spoke to the guys, and they also don't feel that way at all. And I think it's just a matter of like, I don't even know actually, but
A matter of timing. A matter of timing.
But really, I'm hopeful one day it's gonna come out, and we're gonna figure this out. But it's not on the deluxe album. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Well, we can end on that note. I thank you so much to Matteo. Thank you all for coming.
Yeah, thank you guys.